So we want to learn how to graph exponential functions, and so I started with the graph y equals 3 to the x. And so I did a real simple input-output table that I inputted -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and got the appropriate outputs. And that graph on a great piece of graph paper is this red curve right here. Now, on this red curve, we know the following things. We know that the asymptote will be y equals 0 because there's no number added on the end. And so the domain is all real numbers, and the range is all y values greater than 0. Moving on, how do we move this graph up, down, left, and right? So a second graph would be y equals 3 to the x plus 3. And this graph is actually a graph that is moved up 3. And so it has been slid up the y-axis 3. So what's this do to the asymptote? Well, the asymptote is y equals 3 because the number on the end is 3. What's it do to the domain? It doesn't change anything. What's it do to the range? Now the range is all y values greater than 3. Moving on. So this next graph is y equals 3 to the x minus 2. And this graph is a graph that has been slid 2 to the right. It's been moved 2 units to the right. My asymptote is still 0 because nothing has been added to the end. The domain is still all real numbers, and my range is all y values greater than 0. Moving on. My next graph is y equals -3 to the x. This graph has been reflected over the x-axis. What does this do to my asymptote? My asymptote is still y equals 0 because there's nothing added on the end. The domain is still all real numbers because the graph is going left and right forever. But now, because the graph has been flipped, my range is all y values less than 0. Continuing on, y equals 3 to the -x. This graph is a graph that has been reflected over the y-axis. So I've taken the red graph, I reflect it over the y-axis, and I now get my blue graph. My asymptote is still y equals 0 because there's nothing added on the end. My domain is still all x values, all real numbers, because it goes to the left and to the right forever. And my range is still all y values greater than 0. What happens if I multiply a number in front? Well, if I multiply 5 in front, this graph is going to be stretched vertically. So again, multiplying by 5 in front is an example of stretching it vertically. And if I would change this to 1/5, it would be an example of shrinking it vertically. As far as the asymptote goes, it is still a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0 because nothing is being added to the end. The domain is still all real numbers because it goes to the left and right forever. And my range is still all y values greater than 0. This is just a quick, short summary of transformations that causes an exponential graph to move up, down, left, right, reflect over the x and y axis, stretch vertically, and shrink vertically. I hope you understand. Good luck.